Medevac mission to me is, I think, one of the most honorable missions you can conduct in either a peacetime or a wartime army. You're picking someone up on the worst day of their life and giving them hope that they're going to make it through that day.
We're that beacon, you know, those guys on the ground, they don't have to worry how they're going to get back or, you know, where they're going to go, because once we show up, we take it from there and we bring them home.
We are like the angels, the hope that people see on the battlefield whenever their comrades get wounded, injured. Probably one of the most rewarding things that I'll ever have the opportunity to do in the Army.
Dustoff, to me, is a huge responsibility more than anything. We're trusted. We're trusted by our best friends, our brothers and sisters, that we will be there for them, regardless of the situation, regardless of where we are, what time it is, when it is, what the conditions are. That when you call that 9 lineup, you're going to see the Black Hawk with the Red Cross coming down to save you.
I mean, obviously being here at Campbell at the 101st, like, there's just so much historical legacy. You know, and with this unit in particular, just the countless campaigns. I know since I've been in the Army, you know, you always hear about 101 Cab deploying, you know, to the fight in CENTCOM, whether it's Iraq or Afghanistan, and all the great things that they've done. So, you know, walking into this hangar, into this building, it's like you feel the weight of that history on you, you know, and you want to continue that legacy. So when I came here to Campbell, I was so excited to be, you know, here at the 101st, and certainly here with you know, Eagle Dustoff.
I can't thank you all enough for coming out today and supporting our fallen heroes and their families. It's truly an honor to be in this brigade, and the way this whole team has come together the past 10, 11 days has been truly phenomenal.
You're looking at a 5.5-mile route. It's 9K. Each of the K markers has a memorial set up for one of our fallen soldiers. I ask that you are in silence during that time period.
He was our brother. We actually progressed together in the aircraft, and I was new to medevac, and just learning hoist with him was really fun. We had a lot of hours spent in the back of the aircraft together. We turned wrenches together every day, day in and day out, and he was just a good guy. You know, if he was having a bad day, you would honestly never know, because his smile just he lit up the entire room. That man, he was very quiet, but he was also one of the loudest people in a room, just from his personality alone. He had a bubbly, infectious personality, kind-hearted person, great worker, one of the best workers we have here.
Almost the first day he came over to the company, he was talking to me about how, you know, his goals and what he wanted in the Army, and he had been working on a flight school packet, and we sort of had to pick up the ball from where he had it in his previous company, and kind of run with it and help him out with getting letters of recommendation and stuff like that. And you know, we were able to help him a lot with getting that packet together. And you know, he had just found out a week and a half ago that he had gotten into flight school. When I heard the news, I called him right away. And I wasn't his platoon leader anymore by that point, but I still kind of thought of him as one of my guys. And I called him and I just told him that I was proud of him and that I knew that he was going to do a great job. And I just remember on the phone, he was like, "Oh, thank you, sir, thank you, I'm so happy." And I know that if things had turned out differently, that he would have really turned out to be a fantastic pilot. And it's a huge loss that we don't get to have him on board.
Sergeant Bolaños, wow, what a firecracker.
She was always making food, you know, always feeding people here at the hangar. She was really proud of her culture, and we really embraced that. We really looked forward to that.
Sergeant Elias and I both have a love for learning more about our family's heritage, and she brought that to work. She had that in her cooking, and I love that about her. Like, she believed in that. She believed in America, and I'm gonna miss that about her every day. Like, yeah, she loved her family. She loved what she was doing.
Very positive individual, very impactful, and she's that person. If you were having a bad day, you could come in and she'd be talking about some food she made or how she was making spam musubi for someone. So she's an awesome individual.
When I first got to the unit was PFC Bolaños, and I was assigned to 2nd Platoon to be the new section leader. That platoon was coming out of Latvia together and came back to Germany, where I joined them. And they all knew each other really well. They were really tight. They just spent a lot of time in the field together. And I was sort of the new guy. Emily was always just so kind. You know, she immediately, even though I was an officer and she's a PFC, she still went out of her way to make sure that I felt welcome and I felt like a member of the platoon, which really meant a lot to me.
My man, Salinas, he was from day one an absolute goofball. He was all about it though. From the second he got here until, you know, the last night I saw him before he went out to fly, he wanted to be here and he wanted to fly.
Salinas couldn't fit through a doorway. He always had to turn sideways even though he didn't, and I love that. I didn't get a lot of time with him because he was so new, but from the second he was here, he was someone that we knew was going to be a really big player for the medics. He was always first one to say, yes, I want to train. Yes, I want to be a better medic. Just tell me what to do. He was the first one to volunteer for a flight I needed covered. Even though he wasn't RL1, he couldn't do it. I always appreciated that. It was funny always having to say, like, are you done progressing? He's like, well, no. It's like, and he just was always there for anyone.
He really wanted to be RL1. He wanted to finish his progression, and that was his flight that night to get it. And he got it. He just needed that .2. He got it. There's not going to be a lot of things we can do to fill in what he did for us. We're gonna think about him every day. And we all loved him. Every single person in 1st Platoon and every single person that met him.
Sgt Gore, my COIC. Air assault. He was so happy all the time as well. When he took over as my NCOIC, man, that guy works hard. Like, I can't even explain.
He was so passionate about the 101st Airborne Division. Like, every conversation me and him had, he would always end it with a loud and thunderous air assault.
Gore was someone who, the second you met them, you felt like family. He was kind, he was funny, he lit up a room, he never came in without a smile, and he was really good at finding the thing that bothered you. For me, it was just the whole air assault thing, and he knew it always got me, so he'd always make sure to throw that in there.
Sgt Gore, Caleb, we were medics together back at Carson. So I knew Gore since 2017. I've known Gore, and he was the exact same person then as he was now. Just gregarious and funny and loved to have a good time.
I'll never forget just the passion that he had for what we do and the passion he had for medicine. He was going to go to nursing school or PA school, whatever he could do to be better, he was going to do that. And it was really inspiring because I think it's something that we all have goals to do, but he was just making it happen so fast, and I always just loved that I could count on him to bring things back to normal, or not to normal, but into perspective.
Gore is Gore's Superman. That's what he is.
One of the strongest NCOs that I've ever had the pleasure of working with, and one of the best dudes all around. Just a great guy, Taylor Mitchell. Passionate about the Medevac mission. His passion was to train the people around him to possibly have the chance to save a life one day, because he knew the privilege that comes along with saving a life.
Just hearing like my friends out at other Dustoff units or anything that knew him, he was exactly what you think of when you hear a flight medic. He was smart, he was athletic, he was amazing as a person in general, he was selfless, and he just had so much knowledge that you couldn't understand. Like you couldn't understand how someone could know so much and actually be able to keep it together.
Training with him, you felt like you were in rare air. And it's a shame that I'll never get to see all his camping trinkets again and learn how to better my field craft and just spend time with just a great guy.
He just was comfort. And he was the person that everyone here relied on to know what to do. And you don't have a lot of those people like that. I think that a lot of us are so new that we're still learning, and he was kind of that like old man in a young man's body kind of wisdom.
We wanted to sell the brand. He was Dustoff through and through. If I could put anybody on a poster for Dustoff, it would have been Taylor Mitchell.
Being around Jeff, it was very evident how selfless of a person he was. More often than not, when I think about Jeff, he was asking me what I needed, if there was anything that he could help me with, rather than the other way around.
Every single time, without fail, every single time I left the office, Jeff Barnes asked me what he could do to help. And there's just not very many people that do that. I don't care what organization you work for. And you know, I got my always pregnant. I got my little girls on the way, and Jeff and Aaron both pulled me aside multiple times and just gave me so many kernels of wisdom about how to be a good dad, how to be a good dad in the Army, and just, I think the biggest takeaway I had from both of them was that you got to enjoy every single second as it comes. And I think especially Jeff taught me that more than anything. And I'm so grateful for that.
I know that Jeff had gone through some difficult things before coming here. And I think that experience could have caused him to like harden or be pessimistic or cynical or negative in his life, but he wasn't. Like, he was this guy that had this huge heart for other people. And I think that was the other thing that drew me to him, was he's this guy that would give his shirt off his back for anybody. And whether it was at work or outside of work, like he was the same. He was just super genuine. Knowing him such a short time is hard, it's difficult. But I still am like really grateful for the chance to get to know someone like him. Just a phenomenal human being through and through.
Aaron was newer to our platoon, but I already could tell he'd accomplished great things in the Army and was going to. He was, I mean, we only had one field exercise, but he was the first one up every morning when I was on night guard. And we just sat, we'd talk every morning, just about life. And how eager he was and loved what he did.
Aaron Healy, I mean, he came to the platoon like a couple months ago, and immediately, you know, I knew that he was one of the good ones. You know, after flying for a while, you can kind of get a feel for when pilots are going to make pilot in command fast, when pilots are going to get things fast, understand the mission fast, the business, get it. Aaron was absolutely one of those people.
Jeff and Aaron were my buddies. You know, you get, as the W1, I've been here for a year, and you hear new W1s are coming in, and you're excited because you get a hand off the fridge, right? Which I think any of the warrants can understand. But what I got in them was something much greater. Jeff and Aaron were both professional, hard-charging, hard-nosed NCOs that took that into being aviators. And I think more so than that, especially Aaron, just kicked all of our butts in the books, man. He was really sharp.
Rustin Smith. When I first got to the company, he was the first instructor pilot I spoke to. He did my entire progression. And I think pilots, sometimes you'll just feel a connection with someone in the cockpit, and Rustin was that person for me.
Being his platoon leader and everything he already had on his plate, he still checked in on our guys. He checked in with me, made sure that we as a platoon had what we needed to succeed. And then he would go and do stand stuff, progressions, flights, night flights, everything. He just was on top of it all. And it was impressive, very impressive.
Rustin was the pilot that I always was excited to fly with. He was the person that was always going to do things the right way, and I just always knew that like he would do anything he could to keep us safe.
I think as a pilot, Rustin just had a way about him that was comforting. Some of my hardest flights were with him, just on a personal level. Flights that I was experiencing new things outside my comfort zone, and Rustin was just I trusted him with everything.
Even after I finished progression, I would just bug him and be like, get on this flight with me, you know, like comply with me, comply with me. And that week, that was one that I put him on the flight schedule. It was like, you know, Smith and Healy for this AMR for 5th group. And last minute, he was, I don't know, he's super dedicated to his job. That's all there is to it. And he was like, no, I've got to finish this progression on Barnes and Healy. You know, as much as I want to do the fun flying, I've got to do this flight. And I was like, I understand that, you know. And so we went out that night. And that same night that they were flying, we were flying. And they obviously didn't make it back. And we did. And came back, landed the aircraft. Everyone was obviously very emotional, and it didn't process for me yet, I think. So just treated it like a normal flight, you know, and put all the flyaway gear, tied up the aircraft, grabbed all the SI, went to flight ops like very normal. It was totally fine. And then I went to put my flight gear away, and his wasn't in the locker. And I knew his was never going to be in the locker anymore. He was about to PCS down to Rucker to be an instructor pilot there. I had 4 weeks left here. It was, he was going to touch so many kids down at flight school. I feel like flight school taught me all the basics, you know? Rustin taught me how to fly. That's all there is to it.
Zach Sparza. I'm sure everyone's going to talk about him, just his personality. And always smiling, always excited. For me, the thing that stood out, again, like we talked about before, the passion and love of Medevac. And checking in on all of us. I mean, almost daily, weekly, he'd come in, just got checking on my Juliets. The amount he cared was just immense.
Zach was my platoon's IP, so we've spent a lot of time together in the cockpit, and he was such a character and just really in a lot of ways a larger-than-life person that loved to have fun, loved to joke around, loved being a pilot, but also took his job very seriously. And I learned so much from him when I was cutting my teeth here about how to be an aviator, what to look for, what to be focused on. But he definitely grew in me, you know, a love for aviation and a love for doing what we do. And that'll be something that I'll never forget and that I'll take with me always as I leave here, as I go to whatever unit. Zach's love for aviation and Zach's love for teaching is something that I hope that I can carry on and do my best to share with the Army aviation community writ large, because it'll be a better place for it.
He was one of the closest people in the company I was probably with. When I think aviation or all things medevac, like Zach embodied medevac. If he wasn't talking about medevac, he was talking about his private plane. He was all things aviation. But you know, even if we weren't flying, or even if we're in the field environment, he was always, hey, coming up to me, and he was, you know, at the platoon level, and he would say, hey, I want to get a class together. I want to sit down. I want to bring people in. I want to teach them this or teach them that. And he was always one step ahead.
I was thinking about him this morning, you know, and like he had really just lived life like to the fullest. When he was at work, he was 100% at work and just poured himself into this job.
Every time I've flown with him in the cockpit, it was no matter what kind of flight or what was happening in the day, despite, you know, the stress of work going on or the tasks at hand, he would just look at me and he would hold out his fist and he would just be, you know, waiting for a fist bump. And so I just remember the first time he did it, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And he would look at me and he'd say, you know, like, hey, it's a good day. We're gonna fly today. So. And so he was a really big like mentor for me, and so I always wanted to be on top of my game whenever I flew with him. You know, always be prepared, and because I wanted to rise to that bar that I felt like he had set for me. And so moving forward, I don't think there will ever be a flight where I don't think about him. And I want to do well for him.
People on those crews were just some of the best attitudes, best personalities, and loved what they did.
I think the hardest thing about what's happened is that, for the most part, these were the people that made me feel safe. And I'll miss them my entire life.
It's just a difficult time, you know, right now for us, and but we're here as a family, you know, and we just move forward as a family.
Yeah, man, miss the hell out of him. But the other day they came and started up all our aircraft for the first time to do 14 days, and even just hearing the rotors turn, think brought to the entire company, like, just the best feeling. You would think after an accident like this, you know, the last thing you would want to do is get back into the cockpit, like climb back, you know, and start being around the aircraft. And it goes back to that responsibility piece I was talking about earlier. That's all we want to do right now. Because as tragic as this is, the mission doesn't stop. It doesn't. I wish more than anything I could have done something to save them that night. You know, because we talk about medevac and we talk about saving lives. What we don't talk about is the lives we're not able to save. And that's hard. It's really hard, especially when everyone knows them. They're part of your team. But earlier somebody said, you know, that what is Medevac, what is Dustoff? It's like you are that angel. And they're all 9 of them. Guarantee you, every time we go up, they're with all of us. As like cliche as that sounds. Yeah, we lost some really great people, but